the challenge in NCVPR 2018 for detecting the vehicles as well as the velocity estimation. And we also have the topics for anomaly detection in this case also. If we need to detect vehicles in different contexts in the blurry environment, very far away in tiny objects or things like that, our proposed method in this case is we have different profile in this case so that we can adapt into different scenarios to enhance the final result. It can be used also for the case when we want to have people with better prediction. In a supermarket, we count how many people are there, and then we can easily allocate different resources to enhance different slots. And the last thing I would like to share, that is the simulation in virtual environment. This is our paper in VRSG 2018, last month in Japan. We try to help people to learn how to survive in the traffic, especially in Vietnam, very dangerous one. And we try to simulate the events from the real life. We detect vehicles in real life, we track the velocity, and we generate the simulation in the virtual environment from the real scene. We try to combine two different aspects, one in computer vision and one in software engineering and virtual environment. This is something I want to share with you in the next message. We need the real problem. We need the convergence of different research topics, not only in algorithms, but we need to apply into applications. And we can also synthesize different scenes from the real life. Visual object segmentation can also be done if you want to generate more data to train, especially for different contexts. This is what we do last year, and then this year we try to take advantage of the human pose to enhance the visual object segmentation this year. You can see that in this case we can track multiple objects, multiple person instances at one time, and it can follow the people, and it can also assign very precise boundary even when we have the very quick motion like this. The next one is that we can use the robot to scan 3D objects. It can move around as a robot, but we can only get the partial view of the object in RGBD information. So how can we complete the information, or we predict which object we are looking at, which area we are in? And then maybe we can also replace the partial object with the very ideal design object like this. So it can be some proposed method if we get the multiple views surrounding the object, and we use attention mechanism to focus on the area that can be reliable for the prediction. For example, in here, we have one object and we can get multiple views of the same object from different viewpoints. And we try to evaluate which view might give you higher score of prediction in that case. And finally, we can create a system in which we replace the real object with the virtual object, so we can try different layouts in the room in a virtual way. So for the conclusion, I just skip this one. This is the last message I want to share. Computer vision, machine learning, AI, hot trends, yes. But we need to make this one to become a real application. So we need skills from software engineering experts. Maybe in this afternoon we can listen to Kenneth's talk. I just want to introduce you first. Your talk several months ago influenced my thought a lot. Thank you very much. Because you try to show how we can combine between the mindset of software engineer and AI researchers. Thank you. So I just want to bring this one in the same thing. But there is one more aspect we should consider, that is the human-computer interaction factors. Very smart system, very fancy function, but people might not accept the way you provide for interaction. It cannot be accepted. So I think we have the algorithms first. We have how we can develop into the real application, but we need to fine-tune the way for interaction. Only then the system can survive and get people to know, to use, and to live with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll have the panel discussion. After the panel discussion, lunch will be served. So just a quick notice for that. For lunch, if you can all move out of the auditorium, and then we're going to have people move the chairs up. So lunch will be served both in here and out there. But after the panel discussion, we will have lunch. And I would also like to give Mr. Jake.
All right, guys. So this is my probably most excited panel that I've ever been on. We would like to invite a couple of our guest speakers to join our panel. Anh Jik, Kenneth, Khoa, and then Thắng. Please welcome them to join me on this panel. And we're talking about opportunities for Vietnam with AI. And so I'm super excited about this panel. Yeah, please. Okay, so how much time do we have for this panel? Until lunch? Okay, that's mean like 1 p.m.
Hello.
Can we get a couple more mic? Maybe one more mic? Okay, good. All right, thank you guys for joining us for the panel today. The topic of the panel is about opportunities in AI for Vietnam. And so let me kick off this by maybe a quick introduction of the panel and a few words about what are you doing in Vietnam with AI. But people don't know about yet, or not that many people know about yet, because I'm sure you guys have all these projects that you already talk about. So maybe just start with Khoa, a few words of intro, and then some AI project you're working on for Vietnam.
Hello. So actually, I'm doing some work computer vision. Actually, I have some collaboration student from Professor Trick. He have a very good student, and we collaborate, write some research paper together. And that's the first step I try to do in Vietnam.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
So I work on VIETAI. So I guess everyone knows about it. But I think personally I'm also interested in the medical field. I think I'm also have some thought about maybe how to connect maybe Vietnamese patients who have like a disease like cancer and want to have advices from US doctors, how to connect them, how to bring them together.
This is a very challenging question because so far I haven't done anything yet other than giving a few talks.
Or what are you interested in doing?
So that is something that I am still thinking about, brainstorming. The first step would be giving talks at universities, collaborating with professors, and mentoring some students, working on exciting projects.
What about high-tech farming?
That is something that I will explain later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, so for my case, I stayed in Vietnam for most of the time. So actually, I just want to tell the story for my major first. Actually, about 20 years ago, my family wished that I chose to become a doctor. And sometimes right now I just ask myself whether I decided right way or not. That is, I'm very excited that if I can go back into the medicine and try to apply different of the knowledge I have right now in the field of the medical treatment. So this is what I try to do, but not have any real plan to do that yet. But for Kenneth, I've just already mentioned to you that's the one thing you can do. That is, we need to have the convergence of different fields of research. And maybe I would like to invite you to give a talk to different people who are already lecturers in Vietnam. They already have background in different fields in software engineering, network telecommunications, and how they can add more things in the mindset to apply AI on that. Okay, so that's what I have to ask you.
Well, great. So I definitely agree. So we have two people that are interested in doing medical, and I definitely agree that medical field is a like a great field for Vietnam to apply AI to improve analysis, treatment, monitoring, public health, right? So I will go into details shortly, but let me kick off with like a sort of controversial question, and feel free to push your answer. So let's say between the scale of 0 to 100, of AI technology advancement, where do you put Vietnam, China, and US on that scale between 0 and 100? And what is the competitive edge of Vietnam? And then, let's just keep this answer in this room, okay? It doesn't go out of this room, guys. We're all promised, right? So please give us an honest answer. So between the 0 to 100, for these three countries, where did you put them?
You have to be specific about Vietnam. Does that include the researchers abroad, like Thang and Quoc?
That's a very, very good way to get out of this question. So I won't give you that. So let's just say Vietnam, like this community in Vietnam. Local community in Vietnam.
I don't want to answer the first question, but I can answer the last question about what competitive advantage do we have. It's going to be a controversial answer, but I think that our legal system is very loose, so we can acquire a lot of data very cheaply. And many people do not care so much about data privacy, data security yet, so it's both a challenge and also an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, hold that thought. No, we'll go in there. But sorry, my question was about the field. So which field was like the competitive for Vietnam, right? For example, medical or NLP or computer vision. Is there any field that Vietnam actually is standing out compared to the world? And you guys, give me a numbers. Come on, we have 4 people here, right?
So
do we agree that they need to give us a number?
Yeah. So I maybe put Vietnam 30 on the scale
30.
of 0 to 100, because I think Vietnam do have talents. We have very smart people.
This is a smart microphone.
Yeah.
And not so good microphone.
I think we're getting censored.
Yeah.
Selective censor by AI.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So Vietnam is about number 30. And then
30.
where are China and US?
US maybe 100. Oh well, 90.
Okay.
China. I think China have a lot of investment, but I think US still have a lot of innovations. So I would
Interesting.
rank maybe China maybe a 70 or 80. Even though a lot of people say that China publishes a lot of papers, but I think a lot of maybe I'll talk about later, but US often go from 0 to 1, which means that you you go from nothing to something, you create something that doesn't exist. And China do a lot of like one to n, that you have one and you replicate into mass scale. And coming back to Vietnam, I think we have lots of talents. I think we have like researchers from overseas who are very passionate about helping Vietnam. I think this year probably a good opportunity for everyone to talk about how do we build a community, how to echo the power to make it resonate, to make it spread across the country and even like overseas, connecting everyone.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add something more into this discussion. In my presentation, I already mentioned one message. That is, I want to show the demonstration of what the student can do locally in Vietnam, even when they're just in the 3rd year, the 4th year in the university. That is just the beginning. That is the preparation for what they can do in a better environment with stronger team and environment, so that they can produce something better in the future. So from that thing, I think you can determine by yourself the level, what we can do in Vietnam locally right now, and what the student or the people in Vietnam can achieve if they have the open environment for collaboration, for studying, and different fields in the world they can join in. Maybe Khoa, you already have experience to work with the students in the US and the student from Vietnam. Maybe you can have some comparison between them, so we can have some more information about that.
Thank you so much. So I think I agree. Students in Vietnam, they're young, they're talented, very motivated. But to be success, they need some further factor. One of the factor I think is very important, leadership. They need to go to the right directions, and VKI should be one of the organization to handle it. Besides, I think like the model China, they successful not only in academia but also industry. They very clever to combine between university inside the country and university outside the country together. And now even like the big company like I have some experience. Like Centam or Fay Plus Plus, they grow, they develop very good products. But besides the engineering or developmentism inside the country, they very clever to connect with the famous top professor worldwide, and they organize in a way students can do even from the university outside the country can come back to China and do internship in very extractive. One more factor I would like to share, especially with the error in deep learning. Students smart, but sometimes they don't have enough equipment. So connect with university or industry will have to solve that problem for students to try. Thank you.
I already gave the numbers. You guys should give the number too. Yeah.
That's right.
Number.
I just kick the ball to you, and I have to solve the problem. We are talking about the challenges in cargo already, right? And when a university in the US or China, they are just in the top 10, this is normal. But when any students or any group in Vietnam, you just can be in the top 10 or top 5, you think, oh, it's crazy. So from that fact, we can understand. That means just the same thing, just the same situation in the same challenge. But when some university or research group or the labs in the US or the China, they can achieve very high accuracy result, and then this is normal. But when some students in Vietnam can do that, you think, oh, this is strange. That is why, because we don't really have enough something like the infrastructure and the chance for students and people in here to do that. So I think it can give you some hint on the answer.
Yeah, well, I still don't have the numbers yet, but we keep hearing about a couple of challenges that the Vietnam AI community facing, right? Data, the parts, we don't have as much data set, we don't have as much computing powers, and then we don't have the mentorships, of experts from overseas, right? So if any of you guys here can help out, can provide any of these, I think would be widely valuable for the community. But like back to our discussion here. So, what is the chance of us catching up to any of those super AI power? China, U.S. Is that impossible, or is that even possible? And what are some of your advice or strategy that you would say, okay, pick maybe top 1 or 2 off your mind. You say, okay, this is absolutely must do for us to be able to accelerate this AI development here.
Let me give you some numbers first. So
Thank you.
And because nowadays I work so much in probabilistic modeling, uncertainty modeling, so I cannot give one number. I have to give one number plus the confidence interval. So my estimate is 25 plus minus 15.
All right.
If the US is at 90 or 100. And now, so let's say we are at 25. Typically, I do not think about how to get from 25 to 100. I typically think more about if we are at 25, how would we get to 30? Yeah, that's my approach.
Yeah, that's interesting. Fair enough. And what is your insight? So maybe 1 or 2 insights, or how do we get to 30? Or advice?
Well, I think I am a believer in the market economy, so I think that when we do research, we need to be very pragmatic. Like we need to do research with good applications in mind. And so one first possible step is to think about the needs at businesses in Vietnam and how machine learning can help. So we have one good example here. So Mr. Nguyen, he saw the need to have a better credit rating system, and did he try to start with AI first, or with the problem first? Well, he had to answer, but I guess that he found a good business problem and tried to solve that business problem. He didn't start with a hammer and find a nail. And I think that in Vietnam, we have a lot of interesting applications in agriculture, in medicine, medical imaging, and we have a lot of e-commerce sites. Like there are several e-commerce sites, and doing demand forecast is super important. How can we forecast accurately so that we can optimize the logistics, the inventory? So they are interesting machine learning problems. How can we do better product recommendation that are more relevant? So there are many applications in the enterprise space that we can do first. And once we build some initial momentum, then we can expand our expertise even further.
So let me push you a bit on this, and then we'll come back to this question, right? So a lot of people say, Vietnam has a lot of AI application, a lot of low-hanging fruits, but this only applying existing technology in Vietnam. So that doesn't help, right? Because that doesn't get us leapfrog anywhere. So we using technology that China and US are using 20 years ago, 30 years ago in Vietnam. And so what is the balance? How do you balance between deep tech research and application with kind of like shallow layers of AI application?
So there are 2 parts to my answer. Number 1 is that I would not encourage us trying to apply a technology that has been around for 20 years, right? We should look at the current state of the art. Of course, the existing, not something new, but the very state of the art technologies, and try to understand before we invent something new, we need to understand the current state of the art first and try to master the current state of the art and try to apply it. If we cannot do it yet, there's no hope that we can invent something new. Yeah, so back to my previous answer, we need to get from 25 to 30 first. And once we reach the 30, 35, and then we can think about how we can innovate and even leapfrog the US and liberate them.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, thank you. Okay, what about Khoa and Thắng?
From my perspective, with AI, one of the most important factor is accuracy. Whatever you do, you have to good accuracy. And unfortunately, it's very hard to go improve performance, especially for the top performance. Just like when you take the TOEFL, right? If you from paper test 10 years ago, when I did, from 500 to 550, it's easy. From 550, go to 560, 570, 580. Maybe sometimes you have to spend 6 months or a year to improve, just 10 scores. Same thing for the AI. So again, I think it's we need two things to put the AI technology in Vietnam. At the end of the day, what the output? You have to deploy the AI to company, right? To industry, and the way you make the industry to trust your technology, you have to have good performance. That's it, nothing else. And in order to do that, you need two things. One, you need the good leadership, the way to improve the performance, 10% or 5% I discussed. You need the real expert in the field to help. And we have a lot of talent, from Microsoft, from Google. They don't really 100% involved to the process to improve the performance, but they have to have a lot of experience to do that before. So somehow they can give you very valuable advice to improve the performance. That's the first thing. The second thing is also from my experience. I work with US and even China's market in the face recognition. So they have the government approach to put the AI as well. They have the NIST system, National Institute Technology, to validate your performance before you want to apply in the market. Same thing for the China. They also have very high standard requirement. Just the ISO. When you produce a product, you have to make sure you have the good quality before you sell it. And that stage has to be managed by the government level. So that's my sharing.
Oh, this is very, very interesting. So yes, I totally agree with you that 90% effort usually go into the 10% right improvement. And I think you guys are aligned on the fact that let's push the local team to get to 85%, and then bring the global expert to get us another 5-10%. Yeah, very, very interesting. Well, what do you think, Thắng?
So there's one word I want to convey to the community, that is sharing. So I think sharing is very important. So first of all, I think the community, researchers, labs, I think we should share the data. So I remember I work on translations. And then when I asked my Vietnamese friends, do we have a large data set in between English and Vietnamese to train a good translation model? The answer is no. So that's very sad. And then I think people often complain, Google Translate. How come they translate to a German or French so good, but the translation to Vietnamese is so lousy? So I think the reason we don't have a very good data set, I think I know that there's certain lab or corporation, we have the data, but we are not willing to share. So I think we need to change this mindset. We need to come together. I think the community should come together to create a large data set for Vietnamese researchers to really work on that. And in fact, in my work at Google Brand, when I try to open source the software for everyone to view the translation system, you will see that in that tutorial, there's an example for you to train an English to Vietnamese system. Only 2 hours, you can get a translation that can give you some very encouraging text in Vietnamese. And this is the assignment that we also gave to our students at VIETAI. So first thing, I think the community need to come together to share the data.